Hi everyone, welcome to our bonus day 6 of our Lana and Greta sew along. Today we're going to be sewing up the Greta, and I opted for the high rise option, but you can choose high rise, mid rise, or low rise. You can see I have my front piece, my back piece, my lining piece, and then I'm going to finish my edges with fabric binding, but you can also use fold over elastic, stretch lace trim, or you can opt for the no-show option. So our first step is going to be serging the edge of the lining. Now you don't have to do this, but it just gives it a finished edge if you want to. So I'm going to serge that really quickly. Your next step is to take your front piece, lay it with right sides up. Take your back piece, place it on top with right side down so that right sides are together. Make sure you match up your crotch pieces. They're not going to be the same width, but you need to make sure that the raw edges at the bottom match. And then take your lining piece and place that right side down as well. So you should have 3 layers. Your lining piece should be right side down, your back piece should be right side down, and your front piece should be right side up. So now we're going to stitch this crotch seam here, and I'm going to serge it. Now take that back piece and flip it so that it covers that seam, and it should match up perfectly to the front. So you can see mine. Now we're going to just do a quick zigzag stitch on that side seam. Just to attach the lining. So we'll do that on both sides. You could also use a stretch stitch if you wanted to, but I'm going to do a little zigzag stitch. Then we'll flip it around and do the other side. Next, we're going to place our side seams with right sides together so we can stitch those 2 side seams up. And I'm going to use the serger for that seam as well. Now keep in mind when you're laying it flat, because our bodies are not flat, they don't match up perfectly. You can see that the front is a little bit wider, and pants are the same way. If you lay them flat, the back will never match up perfectly to the front because we are not paper. We're not totally flat. But you can see when I actually go to match up the side seams and clip them, they match up beautifully. So that's the part that really matters. We'll go ahead and stitch both side seams. and I'm going to serge them. We'll do the other side. I'm going to stitch the short ends of my binding first to create a loop. And then I will quarter the waistband. And remember, the quarter points aren't necessarily going to be the side seams. I'll find the other 2 quarter points. I'm going to attach right side of binding to wrong side of Greta with my binding seam lined up in the center back. Then I'll find my other quarter points. And you can definitely do this before you attach it. I like to do it as I'm attaching it so that I can just clip it right on. We'll match up the other 2. And remember, your waistband, the binding piece is going to have to stretch a little bit to fit the waistband. It's not a one-to-one fit. We'll attach that with a stretch stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Make sure that you're not using just a regular straight stitch because you won't be able to get them on. After you've got the waistband attached, we're going to fold our binding back over. So you can see it's attached like this. We're going to fold the seam allowance that we've already stitched up, fold the top of the binding piece down to meet it in the middle, and then fold the rest of the binding over like that. And that little piece that we folded back over, this is what it looks like from the back, and that's what it looks like from the front. And we'll do that the whole way around the waistband. So again, Press that toward the front. Fold the top down to meet it in the middle. You fold it down 1/4 inch and then fold it back over and clip. And you do that all the way around the waistband. Do make sure for fabric bindings that you are using a fabric with good recovery. Something like a cotton lycra is a good choice because it will not fall down during the day. The fabric I used for the main Greta pieces is like a rayon spandex type fabric, but I didn't trust that to make very sturdy bands. You can see I have my fabric binding all attached, so now I'm ready to stitch it down. So you can see the waistband is all set. And we are ready to start our leg holes. Now we're going to find the quarter points of our leg holes. And then unfold your binding piece so we can serge the edge there to make a loop. And I'm going to match up the seam there to the side seam on Greta, just because I think that will be the most comfortable, but it's personal preference. Remember, we match right side of the binding to wrong side of Greta. And then go ahead and quarter your waist or your binding piece and match it up to your quarter points on the leg hole. course, you can do this before you attach it too. I just like to do it as I'm attaching so that I can clip it right on. And now we're ready to attach with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Just like with the waistband, we're going to press our seam allowance up, then fold the top down to meet it in the middle, and then fold over. Again, this is what you'll see from the front. This is what you'll see from the back. And then we'll do that the entire way around the leg hole. I normally don't put a lot of pins or clips on anything, but binding is the one step that I try not to take shortcuts on because it's very easy for it to look sloppy. So you'll notice I have tons and tons of clips on the binding, just so nothing slips around. There is an option in the tutorial to attach everything flat, but I prefer to do it in the round because I feel like the seams are not quite as bulky doing it this way. So you can see I have my leg all clipped on and ready to stitch. So we'll go ahead and do that. Trim my threads there. You can see what it looks like so far. And then we just have the last leg hole to finish up, and then we're done. Find your quarter points again of your second leg hole. Serge the ends of your binding to make a loop. And again, I'm going to match up my binding seam with my side seam on the Greta. And then we'll find the other quarter points and pin those. We'll stitch that on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're ready to fold our binding over. So again, seams up toward the top of the binding, fold the top of the binding down toward the center to meet it, and then fold it over. Another thing to keep in mind is if you're finishing with something like pico elastic, you need to remember that there is no seam allowance included for either the waist or the leg holes. So you would need to just stitch the picot right on top. Especially the leg holes, you can see, I'll show you really quick. You can see how narrow this finishes. So if you were to take a seam allowance there, it would be far too small, far too narrow, and not very comfortable potentially. So do keep that in mind if you opt for Pico or something like that. We had some people do it in testing and it looked really cute, but they just stitched it right on top of the edge. My other leg bolt is all clipped and we are ready to finish it up. And go back up a little bit so I can show you. That is the end of Greta. I'll flip it so you can see the inside as well. So that's what the inside looks like. And here's how my side seam's finished up. In the meantime, if you still have questions about Lana or Greta, please feel free to post either in the main group or in the Sew Along group, and we will be happy to answer you. Thanks again for sewing with us, and we will see you next time.